I'm Nick from Cummins Rocky Mountain. We're going to do the generator training and the transfer switch training today on the Pope Science building. Really quick, this is our 2100 control. Anytime if you ever call and need help with it or assistance with it, you're going to want to tell us it's a 2100. Okay, you'll always know on the bottom right corner it says 2100. Okay, so the very first thing is that very basic. Buttons and stuff on this control. You have this auto manual off button here. You got this big red e-stop button, and then it's the digital display and the analog display. Okay, obviously it needs to be in auto to work automatically, just like any other generator that's out there. If you take it out of auto and turn it to manual, it will not start automatically from the transfer switch. Power goes out, it's just going to sit here looking nice. So from this point, if you wanted to start it manually, you can flip it to manual and you could push this manual run stop button. Okay, that'll start it. It'll stay in that mode until you take it out. Okay, until you tell it to stop. To tell it to stop, you can push the button a second time, or you can turn the switch back to auto. If you turn the switch back to auto, it'll run it into a 2-minute idle time. It'll drop down to an idle and it'll run for 2 minutes, and then it'll shut off. Okay, if you want it to shut down immediately, you can just flip the switch all the way to the off position. All the way to the left. Okay, so with it in auto, that's where it needs to be all the time. If it's not in auto, there's a light that's going to come on saying not in auto. Also, the annunciator is going to be alarming, saying not in auto. There's a problem with the system. This first button up here, we have a panel lamp test. I push it once. There's 3 LEDs that come on. If it's dark out, it helps out a little bit to be able to see what the buttons are and where everything's at. If I push and I hold that button in, all the LEDs will light up. It'll check all the LEDs in the whole control panel, make sure that they all work. Okay. The next one up is the fault acknowledge reset button. Okay. I get more phone calls because people don't know how to reset a shutdown fault than almost any other call. Somebody will hit the e-stop button and they don't know how to reset it. Okay, most people can figure out to pull the button back out, but the control is still shut down, and it'll stay shut down until you clear that fault. Okay, so to clear the fault, you got to take this switch and take it to the off position, and then push the fault acknowledge reset button with the switch in off. Okay, if you try to reset it with the switch not in off, it will not reset. You can push that button all day long and it won't reset it. Okay, so the switch has to be in off, and then fault acknowledge reset. You know if it's an active current fault if there's an asterisk on the control panel on the display. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead once again and give it an e-stop button, and I'll take you to the first page. You have the engine menu. You can go in and see that stuff on the engine. Follow the arrows down. I'll take you all through the engine menu. So you can see where everything's at there. Alternator, that's just your generator end. That's where all your voltages are going to be. Line-to-line voltages as well as line-to-neutral voltages. The current, frequency, total kilowatt power, kilowatts per phase. Make sure the electrical engineer divided the loads up right. Power factor, or kVA per phase, and then power factor, and then power factor per phase. AVR is automatic voltage regulator. That's basically how hard the regulator's having to work to keep the voltage steady. The more load you put on it, the harder that regulator's gonna have to work, and that's in a percentage. Once there's no more down arrows, you're at the bottom of the page. This button here with the 2 arrows on it will always take you back to the home page. Okay. So from here you can go to adjust. You can adjust the voltage up or down a little bit. I've matched your utility voltage with the generator, so basically all the equipment that's running on the generator is going to run pretty much the same. So, you know, so a lot of times in 10 volts you'll see a difference in the light, how bright the light is or how dim it is. So we like to match the generator to what your utility power is. Here again you can just follow the arrows down, frequency adjust. That's basically turning the engine speed up or down a little bit. Start delay, stop delay, rated to idle, and idle start. After we do a PM on this, sometimes I'll usually set them up to start with an idle, because I don't want it to run up to 1800 RPMs as soon as it's started with no oil in the oil filter, or there again with fuel also. The new The new engines, you do not pre-fill the fuel filters. The fuel systems injectors cannot handle any debris at all in the fuel system. This is a 15-liter engine. We'll go over the engine a little bit more as we're going around it, looking at it. But here, this engine has an electric fuel pump to prime the filter. So it'll prime itself. You just have to let it. So you basically put it into manual run, do a manual start, and it will the pump will turn on when it needs to. It'll prime the fuel system up, and then the pump will shut off. So next one down is the key switch. It just basically tells you what the key switch is on. The key switch is basically the e-stop button. If it's operational, that's how we operate that. Okay, once again, you can push this button here. This button over here, the single arrow button, will take us back one page. Okay, it'll always take you back one page in the menu. This other two, it'll take you all the way back to the home page, which is where we're at now. If I go to more, top one's faults. We can go into the history and go see when faults have occurred. Now, in the faults, how a fault is recognized is it gives you it gives you a fault code. 2, it gives you a fault name, and then it gives you the control hours that fault occurred at. That's one of the nice features with this control, is it tells you pretty much down to within 6 minutes of when a fault happened. Okay, so let me go to the current fault that we have. Is some redheaded stepchild with the e-stop button. You have the asterisk, which tells you that it's a current active fault. Okay. Now, if you watch the asterisk, when I pull this e-stop button, that asterisk's going to go away. That says that the fault is cleared, but it's not active anymore, but it's still shut down. Okay. We know it's shut down because we have a shutdown light on over here. Okay. As long as that shutdown light's on, it is not going to start. So you guys remember how to clear it?
It's got to be off, and then
Somebody
get the
try it.
button to reset there, fault reset.
Yep, exactly.
Acknowledgement.
The switch goes to off, fault acknowledge, reset. That'll clear the fault. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go in and into the fault history, and I'm going to go up to that fault. Okay, fault code 1433 is a local emergency stop. Okay, that fault happened at 1351.9 control hours. It's not engine hours, it's control hours. What that is that's as long as that's how much time's gone by basically since the batteries have been installed. Okay, and that's going to count all the way up to, I think it's 33,000 hours, and then it'll start over, start counting back up. Okay. Now, and then down at the bottom it tells you what it is. It's an S, means it's a shutdown. Okay, the fault, and then the fault name. One of the nice features with this is, like I said, it always adds up the control hours. Okay, so we can go into the control hours right now. We're at 13,052 control hours. We basically do some simple math and find out when somebody hit the e-stop button. Okay, makes it really, really simple to diagnose problems. You're able to look back and see what the weather was during that time. If you wonder if it was gelling, if the fuel gelled up or something like that, you can go back and look in the history and see what's going on. So the top of the history tells you the number of starts, the engine hours, got 19.9 engine hours, control hours, kilowatt hours, and then genset duty cycle. Now, how you read this is 73% of the engine's runtime, the load's been less than 30%. We're concerned with how much our load is. If our load's less than 30%, then Cummins recommends you load bank your generator once a year if the load's less than 30%. Okay. The other side of it is 20% of the engine's runtime, the load's been greater than 90%. Basically, we're overloading the generator. 20% of its runtime, we're putting too much load on. For a standby system, it's too much load. So basically, this is when I came out and did a 4-hour load test at 100%. When we install them, we do a 4-hour load test at 100% of load just to make sure everything is going to be solid. Okay. Obviously, if your building load is more than 90%, we need a bigger generator. Okay. So that's basically why they put that in there. More again about this is pretty much just for our technicians and stuff. This just tells us our generator model number. what it's rated for, standby at 500 kilowatts, and the software version. This is a microprocessor control, so periodically Cummins will find some little glitch in a software program, they'll send out an update. Okay, we'll come out, we'll plug into it, we'll update it, make sure that it's latest and greatest, and get rid of any of those little flaws that you might have. That's pretty much it with the control there. Do you guys have any questions on it? You guys that can see it have any questions on it? Okay, so you guys see anything wrong with it in the state that it's in right now?
It's not in auto.
It's not in auto, okay? I know that's kind of elementary, but I want to make sure you guys know that this baby needs to be in auto all the time. And if it's not, it's going to be telling you. Basically, this analog display is just going to be, just telling you at a quick glance. That's its whole purpose. It's just at a quick glance I can see, okay, our voltage is good, oh, our load's at 20%, or whatever it might be. You can look at it real quick and just see without having to go into the digital program and actually look at it. These lights up here are just what they say. Anytime it's running, we should have a running light on. Anytime you have two transfer switches on this. Anytime either one of those transfer switches is telling the generator to start, we should have a remote start light on. Okay. The next one down, you saw it, not in auto. That's going to flash anytime it's not in auto. And then these others are just what they say: low oil pressure warning, high engine temp. This failed to start. Now, how these operate is that anytime it attempts to start, it wants to see engine speed within 75 seconds. If it doesn't, it locks itself out. It shuts itself down. Obviously, if it hasn't started, there's something wrong. And how it does is it goes through crank cycles of 15 seconds. It cranks for 15 seconds, then it'll rest for 15 seconds. It'll crank for 15, it'll rest for 15, and then after the 15 seconds of cranking, if it hasn't seen engine speed, it locks itself out. Obviously, there's something wrong. We want to protect the starter, the batteries, all that stuff. If we're out of fuel, there's no sense to keep cranking and cranking and cranking if it's something to start. So that's when you would get the fail to start. Let's just take a second, just kind of walk around. We'll open each door and just walk around, and I'll point out a few things that you guys need to be aware of inside of each door. Okay, inside this door you basically have your fuel filter and your oil dipstick. Okay, this right here next to it, just for your information's sake, this is the fuel pump. Okay, and we actually sell the harnesses that'll plug into this pump so that you can turn it on when you want it to turn on. Say I just change this fuel filter, instead of relying on the control to tell it to prime the filter, I just plug a harness into this and hook it up to the batteries and prime it that way. These like I said, these fuel systems cannot handle any debris at all in the fuel systems. Fuel rail pressure in these, I mean, this one you'll never really be into. But fuel rail pressure in this engine is about 30,000 psi. We crank the fuel pressure way up because we want it to atomize really well. It helps our engines burn cleaner, helps them run better, helps them not be quite as loud. The older diesels were really loud. Newer ones aren't quite so loud anymore because we're atomizing the fuel better. This engine only runs one fuel filter. It does have a water-in fuel sender in it. You can, if you ever get that, it'll come up on the control. Same water and fuel, you can drain it or you can change the filter. Okay. Inside this next door is your oil fill here. I know it's a dream to get to. When we change oil, I don't know, do you guys change your own oil?
Or we don't on the big ones. We do on the rest of them.
Okay. So how I would service this is this hose coming out here. First of all, is a breather. It's a crankcase breather. So that needs to be not plugged. Okay, needs to be clean, free and clear. These engines have if you can see this hose, this is our oil drain hose. Okay, this is how we change the oil on this. I hook a pump up to this hose and I pump the old oil out and I pump the new oil back in. I can't even remember the last time I dumped oil into this big of an engine using the oil filler tube. Okay, this engine holds 25 gallons of oil. It's a dream to carry around 25 gallons of oil to change oil. But inside this door here is your fuel cap. Your fuel fill is right in here. And your fuel gauge is right here. You're sitting at just under 3/4 of a tank. This fuel tank has a capacity of 850 gallons. Okay, it is a dike tank, or it has a rupture basin in it. Okay, so if the inside tank that is holding the fuel ever leaks, it'll catch it in the outer tank. There is 2 alarm senders in the fuel tank. You have one for low fuel, which should come on at about 50%, about half a tank. That gives you time to order fuel before you run out of fuel in the middle of a power outage. Okay. The other sender is a rupture basin alarm sender saying, hey, inner tank leaked, rupture basin caught it. You might want to get that fuel pumped out, or you obviously just let you know you have a problem. The only times I've ever seen the rupture basin have an alarm is when somebody's fueled up the rupture basin. Okay, so air filter is in this door here. It's got there's a vacuum gauge on the other side. I'll show you that. But the new fuel or oil or air filters are pretty simple to change. In standby cycle operation, I've changed them more because they're old and they're falling apart more so than they're full of dirt and changed. So let's continue walking around. Down around the right side of the engine, some real basic features. You've got a battery charging alternator, so anytime the generator is running, the engine is running, we're going to be charging the batteries. We're not relying on a battery charger all the time. Here's your turbocharger, just for you people that care about stuff like that. Water filter. This is something that needs to be changed every time the oil is changed. Okay, to keep the coolant additive package where it needs to be, keep our sleeves from being corroded. Only runs one oil filter. That's here. Has 2 batteries. It's a 24 volt system. Okay, so we run 2 8D batteries. Each one of these batteries is 1,340 cranking amps. So cranking amps will stay the same. Our voltage doubles when we're hooked in series like this. Starter, our block heater. This is a 6,400 watt block heater. So this baby puts out some heat really quick. You can hear it actually. If you guys hear that? That's your block heater. It's got a check ball in the bottom right down here that'll only allow coolant to flow in one direction. We do that because we want all the cold coolant is coming in here. It's coming through the check ball. It's heating up, and it is actually flowing, but through convection. Keep our block heater or our block warm. The sending unit for that, the temperature thermostat, is right here. That thermostat will come on and off as it needs to. This block heater needs to be on 24/7. Needs to have power turned on to it all the time. Winter, summer, it doesn't matter. This is going to keep the engine right around 100, 120, 110, right around in there. Okay, you hear it just turn off. It'll turn on and off as it needs to. Here's your battery charger. Okay, anytime we're not running, batteries need to be charged because we have a lot running off the generator batteries. All of our control, our annunciator, those are all running off the generator batteries. So this is something you can just tell at a quick glance what it's charging at, what its rate is, how many amps it's charging at. It's a float style charger, so it will turn off when it doesn't need to be on. So you guys have any questions with anything in here? All right, we'll hit this next door. Okay, I'll hit a real quick scenario with you. Power goes out, generator starts, neither one of your transfer switches transfer.
We have that happen.
Yeah. So the very first thing that I check is this breaker right here. This is the output breaker from the generator. If this is turned off, nothing can happen inside. Okay, so that's the first thing I'm going to check. Obviously, if it's tripped or if it's turned off, let's check it out, see what's going on. We're all human. I was just at a place the other day where at a police station where the power went out and the generator started but nothing else happened. Their breaker was hooked up on a shunt trip, so one of their guys that serviced it hit the e-stop button. Well, didn't realize that hitting the e-stop button trips the breaker. This one it doesn't, but now they know that you need to reset that breaker. Okay, so before I close this door, I make sure that breaker is turned on or closed. Okay. Any questions there? Perfect. Let's go inside to the transfer switches.
Okay, so the question was asked is what the generators and the emergency power in the building for. throughout the whole building. We have egress, we have lighting, the stairwells are on emergency power, classrooms have lights in them, corridors for exiting purposes. All of the classrooms have red outlets in them. All the telecom rooms have red outlets in them for the networking systems. All the security system is on emergency power. Cooling systems and heating systems as well. So anything to keep the building up and running, to maintain it for, like I said, emergency purposes and just for general provisions to keep people inside.
Okay, so we're inside the electrical room. This is ATS-Q. It is a bypass transfer switch. You guys have any experience with bypass transfer switches? Okay, no? All right, bypass transfer switches are nice in the fact that I can work on this transfer switch, all of its mechanical operation, with it powered up. Okay, I can totally take it, I can bypass a source and put it on normal power, okay? And then I can draw out and work on the whole switch mechanism with it being, I can separate it and work on it without it being powered up, without interrupting any building power. It's nice. It uses our OTPC control. We actually would refer to this as a BTPC, or a bypass transfer switch. Okay. All of our bypass transfer switches run this control arm. Okay. Your source 1 is our normal utility power. Okay. Source 2 is the generator. We can have the generator available right now, but we can only be connected to one source or the other. We'll never be connected to both sources at the same time. That's a bad thing. Okay. Okay. So basically, from here you have a not auto light, which will come on if there's something wrong with the transfer switch, or if it's in bypass. I will put it in bypass just so you can see that. If I could find the key here. Look like a custodian. Okay. So if I bypass it, you should have it should come on here pretty quick. That's on video. Now I look bad. Okay. You can take that one out. All right. Not auto is if it's not going to work automatically. Test is if I push and hold this test button, it's going to put it into test mode. Now, one thing to be aware of is that a test is different than an exercise. I get a lot of people get confused between the two. Okay, a test is I'm standing here pushing the button to make it do its thing. Okay, an exercise is it does it by itself. Okay, this has a clock inside of it that will start it and run it anytime we want it to. You know, if you want to run Mondays at 7 o'clock in the morning, it'll do it by itself. Okay. Now, to do a test, you push and hold this in. It says for 2 seconds, but everybody's 2 seconds is different, like everybody's 2 inches is different, okay? So if I'm gonna do a test, I'm gonna push and hold this test button in until this test light comes on and stays on solid. As soon as I push it in, it's gonna start to flash, okay? It's saying I'm getting your signal, but you continue holding it in until that light comes on solid. Okay, at that point, once it comes on solid, you can go ahead and let off. You'll see on the display, it'll start going through some timers. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and do a test. Do you guys have any of these transfer switches that look like this?
We have a small one over in the student center.
Okay. Do you remember the password?
0000, I think.
Not even close. It's 574.
57.
Okay, 574. It's in the book. Okay, so right here I'm going to punch in 5. What I'm going to do is I'm just going into the program menu because I want to make sure that it's set up to test without load for now. Even though you may want to set it up to test with load. Okay. So I punch in 574. Then I'll go over here to time delays. We can go in through here and see what our time delays are. The very first time delay is our time delay engine start. So when the power goes out, what it's going to do is it's going to stay out. If the power's out for 2 seconds, after that 2 seconds, I'm going to tell the generator to start. Okay? If it's just a real quick bump, we don't want to go on generator. It's only going to be out for a second. Let's not go to generator. Now, if it's out for 2 or 3 or 4 seconds, yeah, let's see what's going on. It's out for 2 seconds, the generator will start cranking. Once it comes up to speed and becomes available, it'll then go into this normal to emergency time delay. Okay? So generator comes available, 2 seconds later it's going to transfer over to gen. There's one other stop we're going to make on the way. This is set up for 0. I'm going to change that. I'm going to give that 2 seconds. What that does is this is time delay program transition or a neutral time delay. If we transfer inertia loads or inductive loads too fast, we can cause a breaker to trip. Okay, so what we do is we basically let the transfer stop in neutral. It'll sit there for a couple of seconds, then it will it'll bring our loads back on. Now I'm just now having a memory of this, so I think this is a closed transition. This is a closed transition switch. So that's why when I pushed that test, when I put the key in and bypassed it, that's why it didn't come up and say not auto. This transfer switch is a little bit different than just a regular bypass, which is the other transfer is a bypass transfer switch. In that, yeah, we can bypass this, but it's also a closed transition switch. And what that means is when it transfers with a test or when it returns from generator back to utility, there's no bump. There's no interruption of power. You will not see the load. The loads will not drop out. Obviously, if the power goes out, yeah, it's going to, because you can't foresee a power outage. So during a test, it's going to transfer back with no interruption of power. So that's why I had this set for 0 seconds. So I'm going to change that back down because I don't want it to stop in neutral because it's a closed transition switch. Most transfer switches are an open transition, or you get the bump. Basically, you're going to see a bump every time it transfers. This one is not. So I don't really care if it's set up to test without load. Let's go ahead and change it over to test with load, and I'm going to have one of you guys do it. Okay, if you're okay with that. Who's going to be running this most? If anybody. Okay, you're the man. So let me just make sure that it's saved. When you go into the program menu and you punch in that code, what was it? 574. Good job.
Right now.
Okay, so if I go into
write that right on the cabinet.
I punch in 574, it's going to save it for 30 minutes. Okay, so if you go in, you go out, and then you're like, oh crap, let's make sure it went in. You can go back into the Alpha and punch 574 back in. Okay. So I like to go back through it really quick and just make sure that what changes I made, it really changed. Okay. So I set up to test with load. It's good. That's what we want. Okay. So I'm going to let you come up here. Remember the test sequence? Sure. Everybody's 2 seconds is different, so just hold that in until that test light comes on solid. Okay. You must have it right on 2 seconds. So when he says 2 inches, he means it. Okay, so generator started. Now what it's doing, when it says speed adjust, what it's doing is it's paralleling the generator with utility power. So making our sine waves exactly the same, phase rotation's the same. Once they match, it's going to close, it's going to transfer. There's no power interruption on this at all. Okay. One of the big changes with these that you have to be aware of is not only does our voltage need to match. See, our generator voltage is 488. Our utility voltage is really close to the same. It's going to change just a little bit. Okay, but the other thing is, go back here, is our frequency on the generator. I have to change that a little bit. I turn it up to 60.1 hertz. Okay, if both of them are exactly 60 hertz. Which if you come over here to source one, it's going to be 60.0 hertz. Okay? If I leave them both there, it's like chasing your wife or your whatever down the freeway. You want to catch her, and you're both going the same speed, you'll never catch her. Ever. Okay? Both going the same speed. Now, if you're going 1 mile an hour faster, you're going to catch her, right? An old instructor that I had, he actually bumped his wife on the freeway just to prove that, just to kind of show that point that she was going 60, he was going just barely over. He didn't want to go too fast, or he'd make her go out of control and, off his wife, right? So he just went up just barely faster and just bumped her on the freeway. I thought he was nuts when he told us this. But that's basically what you have to do on this. You don't want it to come in too fast. You want it to come in nice and slow, nice and smooth. As soon as it's right there, there's a nice smooth transition. Okay, the transfer switch transfers. You don't see a big change in voltage. Lights don't become brighter all of a sudden. Nice, smooth, they don't even recognize it, okay? Now, once you're in test mode, if you leave it, it's gonna run forever. Okay, so you have to stop a test. So once, if you ever do this and you do it, you're supposed to do it for half an hour, let it run for 20 minutes, and then come back and push that button a second time. So to complete a test, just push that button and let off. The test light will flash saying, hey, I got the signal. Yeah, that's good. Okay. Now you see a TDEN. That's time delay emergency to normal. Okay, that's our retransfer time delay. So it's set up for 10 minutes. If you don't want to wait for that, which I don't like to wait for that, okay, especially the cameraman doesn't want to wait for that. So if you push the override button, you can override that time delay. Just push it momentarily up. Now it's going to that speed adjust. It's basically syncing our two sources back up together. Then it's going to close. Then the building once again doesn't recognize the power button. Okay, these are really nice. They're really expensive. Okay, because it's really touchy, but everything has to work perfectly for it to synchronize. Okay, TDEC. Do you guys know what that is? Time delay engine cool down. Okay, that is the engine is in cool down right now. It is not under load. It's going to run for 5 minutes and then it's going to shut off. You cannot override this time delay. Okay, it's gonna. You can't. I wish they would override, but they won't. Okay, they don't care what Nick thinks. Reset or lamp test. If you ever have a problem and the transfer switch binds up or something goes wrong, it's going to come up there and say that you have a problem, and you can reset it here with the reset. If I push it and hold it in, it's just like our control out on the generator. If you push and hold it in, it checks the LEDs, make sure they don't work. Here, this is the home page. This display will go blank after 30 minutes. Okay, you can push the home page, that'll bring it back to life. You can go in and look at stuff. Okay, we can look at utility. Go down through. It's been connected to it's ran on generator for 2,700 hours. That's that. We can go to the generator. We can see how long we've been connected in. It's open from the gen, and it hasn't ran for very much time at all, not even 6 minutes. Okay, on the generator. So more, we go into statistics and see how many times it's transferred, how long it usually takes to transfer. It's transferred twice. Now one thing you need to be aware of is when it says source 2 fail 12 times, that means that source 2 was available and no longer 12 times. Okay? Not that it's failed, I wish they'd changed the verbiage of it. It has been available and now it's not. Okay, that means the generator's been running, now it's not. Basically all it is. So if you see source 2 fail, you don't need to be concerned with it. Control batteries, this has some control batteries in it. We'll open up this door in a minute and show you those. They're okay. Battery charger, it's getting voltage from the battery charger, from the batteries. And this is how long the control's been turned on. Okay. This is going to do just what it says. It's going to take us back to the previous menu. Setup, that's where you go in to change to go into the control on it. This is where right now it would ask you to put in your password, which is 574. Okay. Go in through here. We can set the exercise program up if we wanted. Do you guys want it to set up an exercise program on this?
Sundays.
Yeah. Is somebody here Sundays? No. I will set it up whenever you want. I discourage when nobody's here, just because if nobody's here and something goes wrong, it's going to be Monday morning before you show up and find, oh crap, it's still running, what's going on? So if that's what we have to do, that's what we have to do.
That's all of them on campus.
If that's how they are, perfect. Like I say, I'll do whatever you want. Do you want it? Is that way? Fine. Do you want it to run from this transfer switch, or do you care? Doesn't really matter. Okay. So we'll set up this one. Okay, it's set up right now with no next exercise. I'll just push the down button. I'm going to go to here, exercise enable. I'm going to change that. I need to enable it. Okay, it's now enabled. Sunday, what time?
9 o'clock. 7 o'clock.
7. Okay, so I just bump it up to 7. Now I'm going to set it up for the duration, how long I want it to run. 30 minutes, is that what you do?
Yeah.
Okay. And then I just bump this up to 30 minutes. Do you want it to transfer power or run without load?
Run without load.
Without load. This one you could actually do with, because they wouldn't never notice it. You because it's a closed transition, but if that's how they all are, let's just leave it. Unless you decide you want to change it. And then every week, correct?
Yep.
Okay. Without load, no excerpts. Okay. What this exceptions is basically if Christmas fell on a Sunday and you did not want it to run, you could tell it. December 25th, if that falls on an exercise program, skip it. Okay, it's kind of nice. You can go in here and you can set up, I think it's 100 exceptions. If you didn't want it to run on Mother's Day, you could set that whatever. So basically, like I said, I like to go back through and just make sure that it set at Sunday at 7 o'clock for 30 minutes every week without load. Okay. Now, you notice here if you go into exercise, it'll tell you it's going to exercise in 2 days, 20 hours, and 49 minutes. Okay. Kind of nice. I don't know if it really makes any difference, but then more, and then the clock. Make sure that's right. Looks like our time is off. Where is it? No, it's not. It's a little bit off. Okay. So, have any questions with that? Control? Pretty simple. Do you guys want to see how to bypass it? It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
I don't really like to do it. If he's okay with what's it called? You change it. You change it. You edit it. You edit it. Okay. So if I needed to work on this transfer switch, and you didn't want me to power it all down to work on it, if it was something that I could work on, most of the stuff in here I can work on with it in bypass or bypass. So what I do is that if I want to bypass it to the normal position or the normal thing, use my key, move that up to bypass. At that point, once that says bypassed and closed, I can go ahead and take my key out now. Now this handle comes in. Okay, pull this handle out, and you see this lever here. This is so I can bypass. I can hold all the switch system out. Hold that up, and I just start cranking. And you're going to notice that this right here is going to change. Okay, now we're in the test position. Now we are isolated. Now I'm all the way. Okay, so I just make it so that I can open up the door. Now we're going to open the door. And on the sides, you have these two sides. This is probably something that you guys probably will never do, but just so you can see how it works. At this point, this whole thing can come out, and we can work on it. Okay, you can lift it out here, get the buddy and lift it out here, work on it, do whatever you got to do, and stuff it all back together. Okay. The nice thing is it's safe too, because inside the back of here you have some plexiglass that will drop down over the fingers, so that there's no live nothing live in there. Okay, makes it really nice. I saw one of these not too long ago where the electrical contractor he couldn't figure out how to get to the lugs, so he cut that plexiglass off. And so I got there, I'm like, you can just pull that out and do what you did, but without cutting it off. So anyway, so when you go back together with these, just make sure that it's pushed in nice and square, firm. Push these up, and then you close the doors back up. Okay. Now at that point, I'm just going to go the opposite way. And it's going to draw it all back in. Now we're in the test position. Don't put too much force on this if you ever do it. I'm kind of nervous right there. So what I usually do is I like to just make sure that it's in there firm. Okay, so should be. Should be in there. Okay. Now we are all back in. Okay. It's all back in, ready to go. So you saw where it says motor disconnect. We can reset that. That'll go away. That's basically how you do it. Kind of cool. Inside of here, there's not really anything that you guys There's nothing really serviceable in here for you other than these batteries. Usually the 2 control batteries that may need, you know, they need changed. I think Cummins says they'll last 7 years. They'll last a while. Lithium batteries. Any questions with that? Kind of cool. These bypass switches are how they work. But okay, let's go in the other room and just go over the other one. Let's hit the differentiator while we're right here. We've had somebody's changed my network here, so I'm not really impressed. I don't know who's changed it, but I gotta fix it now. That's why we have a network, a light that's flashing red. Anytime that's red, that means something in the system is not communicating. It's not communicating because somebody unhooked my wires. Okay, so I gotta fix that. So I'll come up here to tell you that it's a common alarm. Did you guys happen to notice what this was showing when we were running on generator? I don't know if it's showing, so we'll do a I'm going to change this really quick just for a second. And start the gen back up and see what, if they've unhooked the whole system or just the transfer switch. It should come up and say that generator's running when it is. It sounds like it just started. Yeah, it's running now, so they've unhooked it. So we'll fix that. But that basically tells you what's going on with the gen. You know, if there's something, if everything's working good with the generator. Obviously, you're not going to have any lights here. This network light should be green. If it's anything but green, you've got a problem. So, and it's going to tell you when it's hooked up and working right. The genset's running. If the genset's not in auto, it's going to tell you. If one of these transfer switches gets pulled out of auto, it's going to tell you that. Actually, just one of the transfer switches. The other transfer switch in there is what's hooked up to this. This one's not. You can only have one transfer switch hooked up to one annunciator. So, with this, it has an audible alarm. It's going to alarm if there's ever something wrong. Okay, and to silence it, you just push that silence button. Yeah, it just keeps me back. So. This common alarm is our network alarm. We're getting a network error because it's not communicating right. So that's it there. Do you guys have any questions with the annunciator at all? No? It's pretty simple. There's not really anything to do with it. Just if it's alarming, you can silence it. If you want to check the LEDs, you can push the light in, push the button in. So let me take this back out here. Okay. So that's back to test with load, so if you ever want to manually do a test, you can do it there. Okay. Let's walk in here. Almost exactly the same, except this one is an open transition bypass transfer switch. Okay. One of the big differences is, I don't know if you guys caught it on that one, but it has 2 transfer motors. This one only has 1. Okay. So this is an open transition bypass transfer switch. Okay, so this is going to operate, as far as bypassing, it's going to operate the same way. Okay, it bypasses exactly the same way as that one. But this one, if you transfer it, there will be a bump in power. Okay, whatever's on this, we'll notice it. Okay. So there again, here's your 2 batteries. These are my wires. They've unhooked, so I'm not communicating. So we're going to find out who that was. Don't do that. But this one, like I said, this one's going to operate the same way. Password, remember it?
574
74
475.
Okay, time delays on this one. I usually set them up like that one I set up for 2 seconds. This one I set up for 3. So all the time delays are 2 and 3 seconds. Okay. So this one, let me get to it. Okay, 3 seconds after power goes out, this is going to tell the generator to start. Each one of these transfer switches will independently work. Each one of them, if we only lose power to this one transfer switch, this one transfer switch will start the generator to transfer to the gen. Okay, or vice versa. If you only lose one, each one of them will work it. So 3 seconds after power goes out, the generator's going to start cranking. Once it starts and comes up to speed, 3 seconds later it's going to transfer. This one I do have a program transition for 3 seconds. Okay, that neutral time delay. So it's going to transfer to neutral, sit there for 3 seconds, then it's going to transfer the rest of the way. Okay. At that point, when you're running on the generator, get back to that. And when normal power comes back on 10 minutes later, it's going to retransfer just like what that one was. But then once it retransfers, it's going to stop in neutral again for 3 seconds, and then it's going to transfer back the rest of the way. Okay. And then it goes into its cooldown, okay, where it runs there for 5 minutes and then shuts off. So that's the one you can't override. It is what it is. Other than that, I mean, this one's going to be set up exactly the same way. Let me make sure there's no exercise program set in this one. Okay, no exercise. Test. This one is set up test without load, so let's change that. And save. Okay. So, any questions? Like I said, it's going to be exactly the same as that one. We went over that one pretty in depth. So, this key is the same. Okay, it uses the same key. See, there's your not an auto. The other one lied to me about, because it's a closed transition. Open transition, there you go, it's not an auto. Meaning that this is not going to work automatically. If the power goes out, it's not going to transfer. It's going to stay there. Okay. So, basically, I just want to make sure that goes out. You're good to go. Any questions there?
Okay, let's take a scenario like the power goes out.
Okay.
And your 2 and 3 seconds goes by, and then it's gonna idle up for 75 seconds, right? When it starts, the generator.
No, it always runs at 1800 RPMs. So if the power goes out, generator's going to start. One of these transfer switches loses power, it's going to tell the gen to start. So it starts, it'll go run right up to 1800 RPMs. It doesn't idle or anything, goes straight up to 1800, and then it stays there all the time. The only time it's not running at 1800 is when one of these tells it to stop, you know, and it runs through its cooldown, so it runs for its 5 minutes. And then at that point, once on the generator, once that remote start light goes out, it'll drop down to an idle, and it'll idle there for 2 more minutes, and then it'll shut off. Okay. But like you say, quick scenario: power goes out, generator starts, nothing else happens. You go out there, you check that breaker, it's on. Okay. The next thing I'm going to look at is this emergency distribution panel. Okay, right here, one of these breakers. Each one of these breakers in this panel runs 1 transfer switch. Okay, so that's the next thing I'm going to look at. Because if they're both turned off, usually they're not going to be turned off. You might have one maybe in that scenario that might be turned off or tripped. You more than likely would never have both of them off unless somebody was just having a bad day, wanted to take it out on you. So yeah, that would be the next thing I check, was those two. If they're both on, I mean, the chances of having 2 transfer switches with problems are next to nothing, especially Cummins. Cummins never has problems. So these transfer switches are a little bit different in that you cannot easily manually transfer them, okay? Because they're a bypass transfer switch, they're a little bit harder to manually transfer. So what you would, on these, it's a little bit bigger deal. You actually have to pull a cover off to transfer them manually. Okay. So if you ever had to do that, if I ever had to pull any of these covers off and I was going to emergency power because it was, you know, this transfer motor was bad or something in the control was bad, I'm going to turn the generator off that feeds this before, or if I'm going to go into it with utility on, I'm going to turn utility off to it. I'm not going to do anything with this switch. I'm not going to pull off any covers without making sure it's dead. Okay. So, and this is where you do that. Once it's dead, you know it's dead, you verified, then you can manually transfer it right there. Okay. Any other questions? Nope. Okay, you're good. You're all professionals now. Good luck.
We'll be calling.